First time.
Fucking shit, this fucking timeline is lit all over. It's over. World's biggest Alex Joner. Holy fucking cow, this fucking timeline is all over. It's over. World's biggest Alex Joner.
All of my sexual fantasies involve handcuffs.
This fucking timeline is lit all over. It's over. World's biggest Alex Joner. Holy fucking cow, this fucking timeline is all over. It's over. World's biggest Alex Joner.
All of my sexual fantasies involve handcuffs.
Fucking shit, this fucking timeline is lit all over. It's over. World's biggest Alex Joner. Holy fucking cow, this fucking timeline is all over. It's over. World's biggest Alex Joner.
All of my sexual fantasies involve handcuffs.
Fucking shit, this fucking timeline is lit all over. It's over. World's biggest Alex Joner. Holy fucking cow, this fucking timeline is all over. It's over. World's biggest Alex Joner.
All of my sexual fantasies involve handcuffs.
Holy fucking shit, this fucking timeline is lit all over. It's over. World's biggest Alex Joner. Holy fucking cow, this fucking timeline is all over. It's over. World's biggest Alex Joner.
All of my sexual fantasies involve handcuffs.
Holy fucking shit, this fucking timeline is lit all over. It's over. World's biggest Alex Joner. Holy fucking cow, this fucking timeline is all over. It's over. World's biggest Alex Joner.
All of my sexual fantasies involve handcuffs.
Holy fucking shit, this fucking
Being fat is actually fit-phobic. Do better, people. We need to do better. There's too much fit phobia going on. Welcome. Oh, see, I was just talking about how I really got to code my transitions in, and I haven't yet. My name is John Ward. We are doing just kind of a casual, somewhat casual hour here. What is it? 4 o'clock, 4 to 5, something like that. Tonight at 7 o'clock, we will be heading up to watch the Destiny John Doyle debate. So we're just going to have a little bit of fun with the people that happen to be in the studio with us today. Of course, Zeb Boykin's still here, texting his friends.
Oh, I'm texting chat.
Texting the
He's
chat.
just saying what's up.
The chat's not your friends. You just qualified that the chat is exclusively not your friend. You did that. Also,
Chat, we're friends. We're friends, Chat, I promise.
And Mihaly is with us today.
Thank you for having
Hot
me
off
back.
a fresh
Happy to be here.
live
Got a good
performance.
guest. Yeah.
I'm talking. I introduced you. I'm just still talking. How do you like it? I'm being a dick.
I'm waiting now.
I was. You did another live show. How'd that go?
I did. Yeah. No, we had the Deplore Ball last night, our like annual fundraising dinner, and I played for a little bit. Glad to be there. Glad they had me. It's a good time.
What we kind of figured we'd do for this hour is stay away from the debate, since we're going to be talking mostly about that all night. Instead, because we have me at roughly 40 years old, Zeb at roughly 30 years old, and Mihaly at roughly 20 years old, we're going to do something of a generational conversation as soon as Zeb's happy with his lighting.
Dude, why am I so red? Am I actually that red?
Because you are from the South and get sun, man. You're red. You're
I was
pink.
gonna say it's because the sun's been so like shining so much while he's been here. He's gotten
Dude,
sunburned.
it's brutal over here. It's so gloomy.
You look
Is it always like this in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, no, I had a guy. I had a friend who moved here from England, and like I asked him, I was like, because everyone talks about their weather, right? And I was like, what's the weather like there? He's like, the exact same. the exact same.
Since we're casual today, I will actually address the chat. By the way, the reason the last two shows from the studio I haven't been reading a ton of comments is because I haven't even gotten our main monitor installed yet. So you two can kind of see the chat quite a bit better than me. But because we're just doing YouTube and X today, I should be able to follow along quite a bit better. So I will do my best. What is going on, chat? Let me make sure you have on live, which you... fan funding, not that one. Which you are live, and let me make sure you will be highlighted. There we go. So any questions, things like that. But in general, I think, as the questions flow in, I wanted to turn it over to the two of you, and maybe we'll start with Zeb, and I promise I'm almost done talking. Not that you take issue, but we are all from different backgrounds, and Mihaly maybe is slightly different in that his father, amongst the three of us, is the only one that was not born in the United States of America. And that kind of raised the question, as we always like to talk about, is like, how do you define what an American is? So maybe with that horrible setup, Zeb, I'll let you start from there, and we'll see what happens.
I mean, that's an extremely difficult question to answer, but I think we have to answer it. It's hard for me to answer that question without being offensive. Like, I understand that it's offensive, but I would say, loosely speaking, in terms of a heritage American, that would be a foundational American too.
I'm just realizing because everything got reset. Yeah, that's why we're so keep talking. I'll get it fixed.
Like a foundational American would be that which is Waspian and has roots and ancestry in America. And so when I say that, I mean, my idea of assimilation would take something like a 3 or 4 year generation upbringing in a culture to assimilate said family to that culture. I think we notice this all the time. Some are better than others, depending on where they come from, if that culture is similar to what American culture is. But also you have to look at where have we come and where are we going with what is American culture, right? So there's definitely been a shift, specifically in the last 60, 70 years, from what people will call post-war consensus or post-World War II, which is a more modern, and Abraham Lincoln coined this term, I believe, which is a propositional nation, a nation built on ideas where the soil is magical and everybody can just become an American. And I don't think that's the case. I think no matter if it's legal or illegal immigration, at some point, if you have enough people flood into a country or just migrate into a country, that country then loses its soul. It's the spirit of that country. And so I would say an American is that which is a heritage American. The founding stock of America, which is Waspian.
What do you want to address that immediately, or I'm happy to?
We can go right into it. I mean, I don't know. I don't necessarily disagree with your worldview in a lot of ways. I do agree that certain countries are better to immigrate and than others, but my biggest problem will be, how do you implement that in reality? How does it actually get executed? Because where we're at now, we're not having enough kids.
That's definitely an issue. But yeah, where we're at is definitely an issue, and I would say the Immigration Bill of '65 has exacerbated that issue.
I'm laughing at what does wasp-peen have to do with it?
Waspine. No, not wasp.
Waspian, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes. Specifically British, Scandinavian, from that area that came over here, 1700s. What was the question?
Well, no, I mean, so it's just if is there a counterpoint to? I mean, so maybe the counterpoint. Is just if anybody with the right mindset can become American is maybe the extreme opposite end.
Well, I think we also have to acknowledge that we do have a citizenship where almost you can gain citizenship. I'm not saying people that aren't citizens aren't Americans, but like a Stephen Wolfe would put it this way, where.
Sorry, Zed. That'll go away in a second.
Y'all can just look at my pretty face while John fixes that.
Everybody else, man. It's because you're not American. It's your skin's really dark and stuff.
I can tell you it's probably the most professional podcast they'll watch today.
Oh, for sure, dude. For sure. No hiccups.
Hey, sorry to have you here. My fault. No, you're right. There's this necessary. Of course, we still don't have shit on the wall.
Yeah.
Everybody knows this. I don't want to keep repeating that.
But in a speech that Stephen Wolfe gave, he wrote The Case for Christian Nationalism, which I gave John. Maybe he'll read it. I don't know how much how literate he is, but he kind of, in a speech he gave, he kind of described the unhyphenated American.
I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, it was pretty good. Which page do you want to talk about? I will read it.
I think about the guy that was on. He was on one of those talent shows, and he goes.
Yeah.
I was just Rain Manning over here. There's 72 toothpicks in that book.
Yeah.
There's still 6 in the box.
There's still 6 pages in the leaf.
But yeah, he talks about unhyphenated Americans, and so we don't really. I say waspian as a defining term, but it's not. We're not waspian Americans. We're just Americans. Does that make sense? So, like, your father would be a hyphenated American. I would.
By definition.
By definition, and so the same thing would apply to Asian Americans.
Purely based off of his ethnic background.
Correct.
Well, I think categorically from a scientific perspective, he was not born within the geographical, physical boundaries of what is considered the United States.
Well, he's not even a citizen, so technically he's not even a hyphenated American.
Okay. Well,
but
yeah.
To counter, just to like vouch for him a little bit, he came here, didn't speak any English.
Well, I say, go ahead.
Paid taxes.
Yeah, but I don't think either of us are saying that. You don't need to. Yeah, and your dad's awesome, and I've met him and stuff. But I think
what I'm trying to get is the immigration system is, at its current point, is totally broken, where we let in the people who make you think that the immigration as a whole is bad because we're bringing in all the uneducated third world country people. While there's people that are freaking. I was listening to a guy who's a doctor, and he almost got kicked out like 3 times, and he had to renew. Like, he still doesn't have citizenship. My dad's the same way. He's been here for like 30 years, doesn't have a citizenship yet. And he's never...
Because they'd make it hard for him, you're saying?
Yeah, and he's never not had a job, never not paid taxes, never had welfare.
Yeah, I mean, I'm professional. No, I'm not bashing your father at all. And I don't blame him at all. I would probably do the same thing. But again, the question is what is? That's kind of the question you posed to me is what is? And we are in this situation where we have so much influx of immigration, legal and illegal, that how do you fix it is almost your question. Yeah. And I think the logistics are easy, but dealing with the hurt feelings is going to be difficult.
Well, how about honestly,
I don't think the logistics are easy though, because we don't have the amount of people it would need to fill out the population for your what you would want to do manufacturing wise. If you want to bring manufacturing back to America, then
it's not going to be easy in the short.
There's not enough wasps.
There's not enough wasps aren't going to be doing.
Well,
jobs.
I'm not. I mean, you would have to make exceptions for like in the Bible Belt where you have blacks that have been here for generations and generations. They're obviously not going to get repatriated. So we have to have. I mean, there's going to have to be a system of understanding. But on the trajectory we are on right now, if what should be a majority of a country becomes a minority, and then it loses itself, it loses its own identity, and it just deteriorates. It's suicide.
What about this, Zeb? Is this a solution? I kind of think this way, which is I obviously think immigration should be merit-based. Like, you want the best. If you're building a football team, I want the best players. And if the object is to win a football game, then I don't really care what they look like. I just care that they're the best possible football players. And so if America's a football team and I'm the coach, I'm like, I want the best players, period. But there's an implicit understanding that the best players are team players.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think this hyphenated American thing, I think that should be totally, you should not have the option. You should have a choice, but the choice should be, are you American or not American? And in that case, if somebody, that puts something at stake. So, for example, if we use Mihaly's dad, but really any first generation person that's moved to America, you want to be here, then we will accept you and embrace you as an American. You're dropping all hyphenations, though. You no longer get to count yourself as anything other than American.
Well, we definitely see an issue with that, especially among political officials that are holding office and have
straight up dual citizenship. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I even mean beyond that. Like, there should be no category of African American. There should be no category of Asian American. There should be, some way. Obviously, we all have eyeballs and stuff, but like, I would have a lot less.
You mean on paper?
Well, say you were in the military. Say you had an Asian guy and a black guy and all these hyphenated Hungarian. Doesn't matter, but you know that they've made the choice to say, I will remove any attachment or benefit.
Yeah, so we have terms for those people.
What is that?
Dark green Marines and yellow Marines and white Marines, or light green Marines.
Well, that's kind of the idea. So now we're all American. We're just different colors. I mean, how did that?
There's definitely a brotherhood that goes along with that. And that kind of gets to what a point I would like to make is that the shared... God,
I got my buttons backwards.
The shared struggle of, let's say, boot camp and SY and the schools that indoctrinate you into this are a binding mechanism which immigrants don't have. And this isn't an individual thing. This is a generational thing, right? My ancestors fought in the wars. My ancestors helped build what is America in the 1800s. So it doesn't have to be necessarily me per se, but there has to be a ancestral understanding that this is what the soul of the nation is.
Yeah, but you also have to think about how short of an amount of time that is in the grand scheme of things. We're 3 people old. If you live to 100 years old and you go back 300 years, America's not a country anymore. So I think we're still in the early stages of what would be a great empire if we can keep it together, and we need the people to support that. The WASP, I mean, at a certain point, the responsibility has to fall upon themselves, because the immigration system wasn't always as broken as it is now, and they just, at the bottom line, they haven't had enough kids, and they don't do the jobs that we need people for.
Yeah, I mean, I think an interesting question or challenge to you, Zeb, is at some point your ancestors were not born in this country. So, like, what is the amount of time you need to be here?
Well, like I said, it would probably be 3 to 4 generations. If I had control, I would export every illegal. I don't care what country they go to. That's not my problem. Just out of this one. And then I would shut everything down for 3 to 4 generations. And I think at that point you could essentially assimilate everyone into a common culture that needed to be.
So you're sort of reconstructing that cell membrane in a sense.
You have to have a cohesion which can function by itself and with each other, right? Right now we have, I don't know, if you look up like demographic split in New York of a geological map, it's completely sectioned off. And when you have people coming in and they create these groups within the United States, they don't have to assimilate. They're not forced to assimilate. And so that is a major issue. They just, talk about Dearborn, Michigan.
Yeah, totally. You can't argue against that, yeah.
And so something has to be done about that. You can't keep running through a nation.
Well, so then, I guess the next, if we're being scientists, I would say, all right, well, what's the list of shit someone would need to be to...
But not that I even necessarily disagree with what he just said, but has that not also been the case for a long time? Whereas when Italians first got here, they were hated by everybody, and they lived by their own.
Well, they were
That's
hated
why we have
because
Little Italy and Chinatown and things like that.
Well, they were hated because they grouped themselves with each other. They retained in group. They never worked out group. The same thing with Chinatown. The same thing with the Jews.
But
in New
then
York,
my
same
point
thing
would be then now, I would say Italians are some of the most patriotic Americans there are. They're proud of their Italian heritage too, but
yeah, well,
pretty red-blooded Americans.
Yeah, Italians have immigrated more so than most of the others, but on initial entry, they did not. I mean, that the Italian mob is. I mean, that's what it was entirely.
Well, yeah, I mean,
built
I
on.
think it's definitely the
Yeah.
most difference in the very first. I mean, Zeb, is it fair to say one of your axioms of this system is no person not born in the United States, like we can rule them out as being.
Well, so we can rule out anyone not born in the United States. Well, you would have to make exception for military.
I don't mean like legal or anything like that, but just by your system of logic. You said 3 to 4 generations. Okay, then that is an American.
I would also rule out natural born citizens born to immigrants in the states that aren't citizens, if that makes sense. Not only that's your case, but
not take issue with it, but purely again, we're talking, whittling down to get to the true definitions of things. I mean, somebody, especially like a white European, like Mihaly, born in the same town as I was, who's grown up here, our lived I almost just said lived experience, but I mean, I guess that's the fucking term. Essentially identical, like as close as it can possibly be. And he obviously has no accent or anything like that. He's a native born, but also Native American culture. So and his whole mom's side has been in America forever, is my understanding, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying you're wrong, Zeb, but like what happens when it gets a little.
So your father's only immigrant. Your mother isn't.
No, yeah, my mother comes from Welsh and German heritage.
Yeah, and his mom's side
she's
goes like
American. That's not-
old,
I mean,
really old
that's
Pittsburgh
not
family.
really-
Yeah.
That's not really an issue, I would say. I think.
But does that adjust your response? Like,
Well, yeah, for sure.
Is it now one of your parents is enough? Is that?
I mean, you have to take that into account, obviously.
But
It's not entirely ancestral.
the problem is, if this was actually implemented, America would totally fall behind in 2 generations.
I kind of agree.
If you look at how we got to space, how we got nukes, it's because of immigrants.
Well,
and the
right,
people we
you
brought
go
in.
from 300 million people down to what, like 60 or something? I mean, what is it, even the number, 150, half?
The edge we have currently
definitely
on
gonna suck in the
China
short
is
term.
our
I'm not-
population.
I'm not saying I'm against that. Like, I think in a lot of ways we need a lot less people. Like, the kind of joke is like, you're telling me this population decline is going to lead to more jobs, cheaper housing, cheaper education? God, that sounds terrible.
No, I hear you, but there is truth though. The one edge we have on China is our population pyramid compared to theirs, and their imminent collapse is why they're so dangerous right now, because this is their one chance to attack.
A bunch of
before they
young
just
single males.
have no men left to fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, our economy's already in the trash, so we can start there. I mean, in the short term, obviously, if you remove a portion of a population, unless it's Haiti, then it's going to collapse the system.
Well, I don't want to confuse real quick what theoretical thinking with real world. Like, I think Mihaly's talking more real world and Zeb's talking more. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
See, and you should understand that's the Hungarian standpoint on everything. Is just be as pragmatic as possible and stubborn. So.
Well, I would just accept that. Mm-hmm. I mean, whatever comes. I mean, the principle itself should sustain itself long term. The short term is going to suck. I don't deny that at all.
Zeb, what would you say about?
But there is threats beyond our borders, and I'm not pro-war, but we do need to compete technologically and culturally, education, whatever. We need to be the reason they come here and not the opposite of people going to China. And
I'm just
going to
jumping in.
Russia.
God damn it! No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I just felt like my thought was so important, and now I'm like, I just did that, didn't I? No, I mean, what about what about the enemy within? So there's clearly 4th and 5th and 6th generation, like Nancy Pelosi's like a 17th whatever generation. She's a piece of shit, and I'd just chuck her in the ocean if I could.
Well, what would happen? What would happen if you removed all of her voters?
I think a lot of them would still be here, and they'd be white women.
Yeah, right.
Okay, at that point, we can repeal the 19th.
My God, Zeb, is being American mean you have to be male?
There's so many
I'm being serious.
lines of thought here.
Well, so this is why these are good conversations, and nobody's judging anybody's opinion. It's just like, so you have the theory, and then you give the, like, well, what would happen if that was put into action? So like,
if you removed all of what I guess colloquially we just called non-Americans, you would have a system. Even if we kept,
would you have removed all the pieces of shit? I don't think so.
No, but enough to be able to make a difference where you don't have Nancy Pelosi's in office. I don't think that's a debatable
Well, if
position.
you were left with only white women and white men, I feel like Democrats would win every election right now, the way the demographics are. Is that not true?
No, I would say no.
I don't know the answer to that. Let me flip up the chat here while we're talking too. I know somebody was talking about making sort of a similar point that their grandfather immigrated, but then fought in World War I, and then said, what I mean?
Yeah, sure. I would.
That's what makes it a little hard for me to just completely agree with what you're saying.
And I would probably make an exception for people willing to join the military.
But if there's an exception to your rule, should it really be a rule?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, well, that's what makes it a rule.
to go back to the Italians too earlier, think about how many first-generation American Italians were fighting their family members in Italy during World War II.
And not just Italians, yeah. I mean, a lot of people, the German Americans, and there's have you seen Band of Brothers, I'm sure?
Yeah.
The guy from Eugene, Oregon, fighting for the Nazis and stuff like that. So I don't, it's a great conversation, honestly, because it's so tricky to tease out some sort of answer. But by all means, keep going. I can't once again read this chat. Oh yeah, wait, that just said I have it right here. Can we deport the fags while we're at it? Christopher Withers, bring back Spartan culture. Actually, that's kind of, Zeb, the danger of what you're talking about is how the Spartans sort of fizzled out. Like, they just became a little too tough on their requirements, and they just lost to a way bigger army, despite each Spartan being individually way superior.
I don't think that's my argument, though.
No, because they didn't have catapults. And so you become isolationist, you fall behind
I don't
technology.
think y'all actually understand the might of the military in the U.S. Like, I don't think you.
Yes,
can
but how many of those
comprehend it.
soldiers are immigrants?
You mean current might or like World War
Very
II?
few of them.
But by your standards, 3 generations, was it?
Yeah, but they're.
Fair point.
You're losing
people
probably
that
at least
populate-
40% of your military.
You don't need 20% of your military. It's not about people.
I kind of agree with that too, but
Well, you also need people running logistics. It's not just the people holding guns.
You can run logistics. So
Who's building things for Halliburton without immigrants? Who's
I mean, I guess
how are
we can-
things getting on ships? and
Let's
going
try to pull
overseas?
this number up. I guess we should.
What's the demographics in the military?
Racial demographic.
How many Ramirez's did you know? I mean, if it's Call of Duty's accurate, then it's like 50-50.
It's definitely based on.
It's 68.8% white active duty, and that's just white. That's so that a lot of those are probably not.
This is actually interesting. What's the demographics of America? I'd like to see how they compare and contrast.
62%.
Yeah.
It's headed towards 62%. It's relatively close. You have a couple of demographics that don't military at all. Namely.
Yeah, Zeb is right. That's on the screen, right? Okay.
So.
So the whole U.S. 58.9, roughly 60, and then military 68. So 31 black. That's actually a lot more because it's like 13, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would go ahead out there and just say remove all.
Why does it not have black people
period.
in here all of a sudden? You see that shit?
It's racist.
It's got white, Hispanic, Asian.
Is that the AI response?
Yeah.
Google's AI is trash.
But yeah, I mean, it's relatively close.
Asian's very low. I know that. Like it's 1 to 2%.
I don't know that I've ever seen an Asian.
But the military's not fall with numbers anymore.
So I guess can we not say that Mihaly has something of a point in that there's 31% black and only 13 of the country, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, I've already made the point that we're not sending most blacks back because they are essentially Americans. And the same thing would go for some of the Hispanics, but
20%.
I mean, you could sacrifice probably 50% of the military and still function effectively.
I mean, so that part I think is a good point. Yeah, there's a lot of dead weight, but that's not even just the military. That's everywhere.
The direction war's heading, when it's going to be more autonomous vehicles probably, and just drone warfare.
Dude,
but
those drone videos are brutal. That's the worst stuff I've ever seen, man.
Yeah, could you
It's
imagine?
Oh.
brutal, dude.
You see the ones that like the guys are like
It's so
running away from them and like
yes,
trying to shoot
you're
them.
so helpless. Like,
Yeah.
My opinion, you get caught running drone warfare, you catch a nuke. Find out where the receipt, where the
Can
signal
you
is coming
imagine
from?
catching one of those fucking operators? What would you do to him, man?
Oh,
Holy
he
cow.
holding the controller.
Yeah, like I'd be like, well, sucks to be you. Enjoy the next 72 hours of the most horrible shit you can imagine.
Ping where the transmission is coming from, and you can catch a little atom bomb. But I don't know. I think that
I'm honestly
definitely
surprised there
in Geneva.
continue to be this much trouble. Like it just seems like there's lots of ways you can knock those out of the air.
like EMP type.
They're setting up like massive nets, like
Yeah,
in
even
front of their
literally
bunkers
just
now,
hang
like-
nets.
But even if they were, I mean, you have an infinite amount of drones.
They're so
Yeah,
cheap.
so cheap. Yeah.
I made a little drone myself. Have you seen my little airplane with the camera on it?
No,
Oh, I have not made a drone, FBI. No one
I was
listens to
about
any
to
of
say,
this.
where's this going?
I got into FPV. Well, so the YouTube is great because they have all these hobbies, like first person view. So you, for flying a plane, of course, my brain is like, I know how to use that. I know what I can do with that technology. A remote controlled thing with a camera on it that can carry a payload. Yeah, I'll learn how to do that. But it's not hard. I mean, you can even skip all the coding and buy like a little pre-made.
Oh yeah, they sell them on Amazon now.
It's like camera, transmitter, receiver, everything is like $25. And
Oh
then,
no, I mean like on Amazon you can buy.
Oh yeah,
like,
you can
meant
just
to hold a
buy the
grenade
whole.
and drop.
You're not
from the
carrying a
drone.
lot of weight with any of those, though. Are you saying you can buy
For like
those?
a DJI drone, you can buy something that like will drop payloads.
What kind of weight can they carry?
I don't know. You had to Google. I haven't looked into it that much.
I didn't make a joke at. I mean, it's just absolutely brutal. Everyone you see dying in those videos has nothing to do with any of the. It's kind of sad, you know. It's the fucking broke ass
Yeah, they're
people's
so
kid.
helpless, man. But that's $8.4 billion going over there. So
I mean, so we'll pull the chat up here again. But I mean, I think the main conversation, if you're just joining, we're having kind of a fun half hour, which we're halfway through. Fun hour. It's 4:30, by the way. We're gonna go till 5. But the question at hand, generational divide. I'm roughly 40, Zeb roughly 30, Mihai roughly 20, and just what is in American? That's the discussion. Go ahead, Zeb.
yeah, I guess
Sorry.
we can go back to the immigration idea.
Or whatever you want.
It's gonna suck no matter what, and we're in a bad spot. And that's just the way all of the American systems are right now. Even healthcare is at a point where it's at a tipping point where it's going to go up 15% this year because everybody's on Ozempic. You know, immigration's at a point where it's going to displace what is America and remove the soul of it. So, and then you have the economy, which is in the tank, and everything else. All of these systems are built on each other.
Competency crisis will not, or what's that famous article making the rounds? You know what I'm talking about? Complex systems will not survive the competency crisis. Hold on. Keep talking, Zeb.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I'm just saying all of these systems, if one goes down, they domino and they all crash. And I think inevitably it's going to rely on local infrastructure and local people to work together to keep things going. I think the infrastructure of America is greater than all of the nations that have fallen before it, and it can continue without the federal system, which is, I would argue, is a burden. I mean, how much tax did you pay this year, right? I mean, we pumped out like 30%. That's
Don't ask me that
on top
question
of paying the
on
government
the air.
another $20,000-$30,000.
Oh, it's absolutely absurd. This is, I think the article, let me just read a bit of this. It seems germane to what we're trying to arrive at. At a casual glance, the recent cascades of American disasters might seem unrelated. In a span of fewer than 6 months in 2017, 3 U.S. naval warships experienced 3 separate collisions, resulting in 17 deaths. A year later, power lines started a wildfire that killed 85 people. The pipeline carrying almost half of the East Coast gasoline shut down due to a ransomware attack. Almost 1 million intermodal containers sat on cargo ships unable to dock at Los Angeles ports. A train carrying thousands of tons of hazardous flammable chemicals derailed near East Palestine, Ohio. Air traffic control cleared a FedEx plane to land on a runway occupied by a Southwest plane preparing to take off. Eye drops contaminated with antibiotic-resistant bacteria killed 4 and blinded 14. Read this entire article on your own time. It is long.
Well, and China can turn off our electricity at any moment they want.
But here's kind of more what we're from meritocracy to diversity. The first domino to fall as civil rights era policies took effect was the quantitative evaluation of competency the quantitative evaluation of competency, okay, by employers using straightforward cognitive batteries. While some tests are still legally used in hiring today, several high-profile enforcement actions against it. So yeah, it became illegal to use IQ. Exactly. I don't want to be an article reader.
Well, yeah,
but
I think there's a false dichotomy there, though.
Hit me with it.
Scroll up. What did it say? From meritocracy to diversity. Yeah, I think you can have. I don't think that's a dichotomy in itself. I do think if you push merit to the point where that is all that exists, you lose the soul of the thing, whether that's a company or a nation.
I don't know they're saying dichotomy. I think it could be many different words. They're comparing that factually it used to be a meritocracy.
I would say the reason the WASP are in the position they are now is because they haven't had enough of meritocracy amongst themselves and they haven't had enough pride in themselves.
That's a fair point. We heard in
It's
Charleroi.
not meritocracy in themselves as much as it is tribal or in-group preference that should have happened. Right, Americans should.
But the reason that they haven't succeeded is because they haven't been able to compete. In America, the best survive. It's in theory. We've gotten away from that a lot recently, but especially throughout, from 60s to the 80s to the 90s, meritocracy was a big thing, and that's how we won the Cold War. That's how we became a powerhouse. I think the reason the WASP are where they're at today is just because they've fallen behind in the greater scheme of the free market and competing.
Well, I would disagree with that because we are essentially a oligarchy by proxy, and so
I don't disagree with that either.
And so
now
what happens is the system is usurped. Tatley, I believe, talked about any democratic system will eventually become an oligarchy, and the only way to combat that is to have a monarchy. Every system is eventually going to logically conclude to a oligarchy or a monarchy, and I think he's right. I think that's where we are. We have a democratic republic. You could argue.
Who wrote that? Who's
Tatley? T-E-T-L-A-Y.
That's not who I'm thinking of.
Have you guys seen the study that?
I think I'm thinking of Aristotle's Ethics. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. Have you seen the study that in this past year, like there was 20 to 30% of first-year hires in Gen Z were fired from their job?
Yeah.
It makes me think, I do think there's a part of Gen Z being sabotaged in order to be replaced and just not being taught how to function as proper human beings so they can have no space that is, I don't know, of use in the future and just go away. And
there's
die
definitely
out.
an issue with the school system not preparing people for the future. It's a drive to prepare them for college through knowledge and not actions in the real world.
Yeah, it used to be teach them how to think. Now it's teach them what to think.
Yeah, there has to be a blend of both of that. Mm-hmm. You can't not know a thing and then try to think about it. But,
yeah, that's fair.
but yeah, no, I think you're right.
Right
There's an issue with the education system, which we could point the finger at DOE all we want, which should be banned or disbanded. But
that'll be the day if he actually does do that.
Yeah, they said they were going to do it. We'll see. I think RFK is going to kind of
RFK gives me a lot of hope on that.
He's good. He's good on a lot of stuff. I don't agree with him on social issues. Just give him the health care, man.
I had the unique privilege of I grew up going to Catholic school up until middle school, and then high school I went to public school. I learned way more in my Catholic middle school than I did in public high school. We all joke about it to this day. Like the amount of knowledge we retain from middle school compared to the public school is not even quantifiable.
Yeah. So kind of, I guess we're on the education system. So when I was in 6th or 7th grade, we had a teacher, and they had classes. Basically, they used to take standardized testing at the end of the year, and then the next year they would place the placement all of those testings. They would take essentially the top half and the bottom half and put them in separate classes. And so the year that they did that, or the year after, we probably learned so much math in one class because we were able to progress so fast because there was nobody, there was no lowest common denominator. There was nobody holding everyone back. And so, and then the following years they reverted that because it was racist. And we weren't able to learn as fast because there was always a one-on-one counseling that needed to happen to keep the other kids up.
That's how my school was. We had freaking Asian kids going. We had a lot of Korean kids, and they all went to freaking Penn State and took math classes there while they were in middle school. I was like, man, I'm in the lowest math class. I don't even know how to put this freaking thing in Excel. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
stats. I'm all lost.
I definitely give them, or that teacher, credit. Miss Brown, I give her a lot of credit for my math abilities. I mean, I'm not a genius, but definitely more advanced than I would have been. But yeah, DOE, health system.
You guys had a
it
healthy
RFK.
discussion going there. I didn't want to jump in the way with my fucking Aristotle.
Go ahead with Aristotle.
I find this interesting. He's breaking this down like a scientist. Okay, so you can be ruled by anywhere from one to an infinite number of people. So he breaks it down. How many rulers do you have? Do you have one? Do you have a few? Or do you have a ton? And then he separates into ones that have a common interest, the people who are working for the people, and the ones who are working for themselves. And so, contrary to public opinion now, but I think I heard somebody say it, monarchy is a good thing. Mm-hmm. It's a king, but a king that loves his country.
Well, yeah, we have this idea that
We have a romantic
dictatorship-
idea, I
Yeah,
think.
dictatorship is a bad
The
thing.
flip side of that is not oligarchy or anything like that. It's still what is a bad single leader? Well, that's a tyrant, right? A despot. The interesting thing to me, I was thinking about the other day, is his number of rulers being few. Aristocracy versus oligarchy. And then, of course, polity is a word you don't see on TV very often. And then democracy is bad. It's a group of people with selfish interest. And that's very close to a part of what we're dealing with now. And it would be great to have a polity. My thought was, I'm starting to think it's impossible to have anything over time other than a rule by a few people. I think everything will get to that.
So Stephen Wolf makes this point in his book, is that
Yeah, it was page 74. Hold on.
is that and it's been made by a lot of people, not just him. He collectivized the data, and basically makes the argument that a people should be ruled by what is best for that people.
Yeah, it's 74.
So basically, what that means is not everybody is predisposed to the same thing, and so I guess the argument would kind of go to the British Empire was a monarchy with a lower republic chamber, so therefore, and they were most successful in that way, and something similar was in Rome, so the WASP would probably do best under that type of government, whereas another group of people would be better off under a different type of government.
Could you say that like the polity is the people voting, the aristocracy or the few is like the judiciary and the one is the executive? Is it like, can you avoid?
No, you would have to have. I think that's.
Can you have them all at once?
I think that's an issue we have with ours is the thing that makes it good also makes it bad, and so when we have these balances in place, it allows for change to not happen as it should. Does that make sense? So because all three chambers are equal, it doesn't allow for a constant
No
progress
one
to a
group has
single
enough
goal.
power to get anything done. You're
Yes,
saying, yeah,
and it was built for that,
right?
Which
Because they were terrified of a tyrant.
because of Jefferson and his Enlightenment thinking from coming from French Revolution. And I can bash on Jefferson all day long, but that idea of kind of a balance isn't necessarily good. And I would also argue that a term limits on the executive branch is not a good.
I agree with that.
Because I guess when I look at it and I see something like the Supreme Court that has a lifetime membership, they are the most conservative, they are the most cohesive unit of the federal government. And I think that is largely due to not having to run, at least for senators and representatives of, run for re-election every 2 years, president every 4 years, and then you have the Supreme Court, like I said. But the constant changing of persons and the balances to each other do not allow for any growth to happen. And the goal constantly changes, right? You have Obama for 8 years, you have Trump for 4, you have Joe Biden for 4. And I know there's a bureaucracy there, but at a certain point you have to realize that if the goal is constantly shifting and the way we get there is constantly shifting, it's suicidal almost. You're working against yourself.
Now, have states, and this isn't even a point against you, just indulge me for a little bit here.
Yep.
Have states not always been culturally divided from the foundation of America? When you look at the Revolutionary War, somewhere like Nova Scotia was probably more identical to Massachusetts than somewhere like South Carolina was to Massachusetts.
Oh, yes. So Massachusetts was really the only Catholic-leaning state at the founding. Everybody else was Protestant or Protestant-leaning. I think it was something like 97, 98% of all Americans at founding were Protestant.
And it used to be called not the United States, it was these United States, a conjoined group of different...
D's?
These, like these.
D-E-E-Z, are you saying?
T-H...
These states?
T-H...
I know what you're saying.
Okay. But a unification of these culturally different...
Your face looks like you're going to be mad about me, what I just did later. That's okay.
No, I just don't know what you're doing right now.
I was D's nutsing you with states. Come on. Oh,
you were trying to set me. I didn't play along.
You guys don't even do that
I
joke.
see.
It's the same problem with having all these different movie references that none of us get.
You're too old.
I know. I'm fucking going on 40, bro.
Yeah,
Shit,
when
man.
when kids throw trash in the trash can from my age, they yell Curry. They don't yell Kobe. How's that?
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
I
That's
didn't.
a lie. I've
I hate
never
to
heard
say
that
it.
in my
You know,
life.
I said Jordan, motherfucker. Okay, that's how old I am.
They're saying Caitlin Clark now.
Caitlin. Do they stab
hilarious.
themselves in the eye with fingernails afterwards to make it really realistic?
That's the real generational divide. Is what basketball player you use when you throw a piece of paper in a trash can.
It's the things you start to notice.
Do they
that-
actually curry it up?
Oh yeah.
Oh no, that's
people were
brutal.
Wait, so
Curry.
Zeb, you Kobe?
Yeah.
Always.
I legit am Michael. I'm that old, dude.
No, you don't.
Jordan won in
never
the
happened.
90s. Yeah,
No one has ever
That's
done
hilarious.
Jordan.
that. Nope.
No,
100%.
Yeah.
Well, Kobe wasn't alive yet. Well, he probably was alive, but he wasn't balling yet. It was Jordan.
Wasn't raping yet.
But but what you're talking about with the states is that's basically the argument that Jefferson made with the interfederalism is he wanted a loose connection of states, similar to I guess something like maybe the EU is a decent example where they work together, but there's no federal authority per se.
And that's why I'm saying this isn't a point against you, because something like the EU in America absolutely terrifies me. The EU is awful.
Correct, and that's what Jefferson would advocate for, whereas Hamilton followed under a federalism, but I would argue he's a much more nationalist that wanted a cohesive country. But I don't think, and he wanted slow growth across Louisiana Purchase and to California, which never happened because Jefferson bought it and sold it at like a penny an acre or $1 an acre.
Yeah.
But
I just saw this text you sent me. Sorry.
But where was that? John's talking in the mic to me. But no. Hamilton wanted this nationalism to maintain a cohesive culture, and he advocated for strict immigration, whereas Jefferson didn't. And that's where this Enlightenment thinking came along, and then later on a propositional nation from Lincoln. But to your point, I don't know if Hamilton would have succeeded in maintaining a culture across nation because of the distance needed. Right, so a country like inherently, cultures are going to evolve by themselves, and if you have a country, or if you have a people in California and a people on the East Coast, then they're inherently going to develop different cultures, and I think that's what we kind of see.
Definitely. And I feel like not just to default to the rap game, but like there was a definite strong cultural divide between East and West in the 90s, and I think that's continued in a way
There's
throughout.
also a lot of commonalities. I mean, Diddy was raping all of them. They all fell under the umbrella of rape victim of Puff Daddy.
Well, yeah, they
And
unified
if they were
behind
going
the
to say
scene.
anything, they got Tupac.
Exactly.
Sorry, man. I don't mean to keep doing this. I've been having this thought, and I just want to throw it out there. We're still close enough to talking about this. So I have a theory that I think resolves everything you guys were just discussing. I think whatever you call your government, you only ever have one of two, and that is either an aristocracy or an oligarchy. Like right now we have a democratic republic, they'll call it. But if you were to somehow be able to determine who is making decisions that matter, it would be a relatively small number of people. And then the question becomes, are they making those decisions out of self-interest or common interest? And so we have an oligarchy right now. And I'm talking about, like, yes, there's a Congress, yes, there's a president, but like, look at what happened to Trump.
It's by proxy.
President is almost accepted at this point as a meaningless puppet, other than maybe Trump.
When you have, 3 or 4 companies own 70% of the stocks listed.
Even when you have a legitimate king that is legitimate, like, so say a monarchy, a beloved king of whatever country, there's
Call
just
him Napoleon.
you have a population of a certain size that whether or not Napoleon is the king, and even if everyone around him listens to him, you can't have all of France around him at the same time. So there's got to be some lieutenants. And those lieutenants, part of Napoleon or any great monarch's success is
Well, what happens when
talented
What
lieutenants.
happens when Napoleon needs money to fight a war?
Yeah, I think the problem with
there's no
monarchy-
one person. I don't believe true monarchies exist.
I think scalability is the problem with
Yeah.
monarchy. Yeah, I agree.
Maybe in a group of like 10 to 20 people,
Mm-hmm.
there could, and you would, some 7 foot.
And I would agree. I would agree with that. I would say that the scalability, and I would also say a geological issue or geographical issue is the distance from Maine to California. Like that is a real issue.
Well, now take okay.
Even
so, yeah.
with this technology,
Oh yeah,
that's a real issue.
it's we like to act like it's instantaneous, but it's not. And so then you take polity democracy, groups of people making collective decisions. Well, I bet if you dug into the weeds there, in the polity, there'd only really be like 2 or 3 people that kind of lead. Even though they're like, what do you guys think? And what do you, I mean, this show kind of the slow boot up and figuring things out is a bit of a polity, but in reality, I'm kind of like making the decisions. Well, if you expand that beyond, like, I don't think monarchies and polities exist for real, and I don't think tyrannies and democracies exist for real. There's only aristocracies, which is a small group of people with.
For a period of time.
It's actually interesting. So now that's like particle physics.
Well, they do for a period of time. I mean,
Well, yeah,
you
how-
can have a
Is an element that lasts 0.001 nanoseconds really an element? Is the stability of the structure like what helium or something? I think like never degrades. One of them will just exist forever.
I have a hydrogen
Carbon?
collider in my basement.
Yeah.
I guess carbon.
I had 2. Yeah, you tried to flex.
Hot
and
Wheels.
I just flipped it on
It's a
you.
Hot Wheels track goes really fast around.
But you see what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean that's interesting, Zeb. So it's part of how you frame it. Are you looking at it as a continuum?
I would compare it to a businessman that wants to become a politician and wants to make a difference, right? So they go in thinking, oh, I'm gonna make a difference, but when they get there, they're like, I gotta make all these compromises for what? And then they're like, oh, there's this lobby that's trying to give me money, so I'm just gonna take it, and okay, I'll do their lawfare for them. So you can
in the chat is interested. Go ahead, sorry.
You can initially have whatever you want, whether that's a republic, a democracy, a monarchy, however you want to put it. And the question is, how long does that last? And like we are arguing, the inevitability is going to be a dictatorship or a oligarchy.
I think the single ruler ones are a little more obviously not real to me because, again, I don't care how much you control have as one person. Like, you may even say you brainwash your subordinates to being like you literally are controlling their minds. You still need them to be in other places doing things that you can't do. Like,
Well, that's what Hamilton did for Washington. Hamilton was Washington's.
Yeah, I think the founding fathers were an aristocracy, at least by the definition that you see on the
And that's what
screen.
Hamilton
It was a
advocated
small
for.
group of people. The aristos, right? That's the original word. It's like the good ones, the best ones. You're ruled by your best people. And I think maybe we'd all agree that not all people are the same. We can throw that crap out the window, that we're all born equal. Like every 2 people are exactly the same in terms of talent and ability. And
Well, that's an issue.
I'm not talking about self-worth, but
Everybody, people have this idea that anybody can learn anything, or we're all born on the same playing field essentially, and that all men are created equal. Is this the idea of give everyone a chance? But that's not, well, first of all, that's not what the founders meant when they spoke on it. They meant it in more the sense of a imago Dei of everyone has inherent value as a human being, as we have souls.
Was the not that all men are created equal? Is that not the exact words?
Yes.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with that. And then
equal in inherent value.
Yes.
And not in
ability.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know why that's a sticking point, but specifically the left and some libertarians want to hold that position too. But
they call that equality of outcome, right? They believe that
equity,
which I don't know these. It's equity of outcome,
and it's
I don't know
equality
if they call
versus
it
equity. It was a whole thing when I was in high school that our teachers tried to talk us about. It was stupid.
Well, the whole leftist educational thing was this idea that if you gave underprivileged is the word they use, people the same access to the same resources as the privileged kids, they do just as well. That has been decidedly proven to be not true.
Well,
it does not matter. You can give them all the resources and they'll still do worse.
The same thing with men and women. If you have an egalitarian society, or even a forced egalitarian society, the women will still choose human interaction, and the men will still choose item or object-based work.
I see aristocracy and oligarchy. I'd call the Democrat Party right now an oligarchy, and I'd call the Republican Party an oligarchy that has Trump trying to form an aristocracy. And the aristocrats are Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and those kind of guys, and Trump himself and things. But what they're working for, looking at this is on the screen. No, it's not. They at least present that they want to work for a common interest, which if there's a few of them, they're an aristocracy. They're Elon Musk, let's get humanity to Mars. I'm not saying they mean that. They may just be power struggling with the other elites. It's an oligarchy versus another oligarchy, or they're overthrowing the oligarchy to become the new one. I don't know. They're at the right age for it. They're in their 50s and shit. And then you have the Pelosi Club in their 70s and 80s. So maybe this is just this generational elite battle, and the smart young tech aristocrats or oligarchs or whatever, but they're definitely one or the other, like the Silicon Valley people, the I don't know all their names off the top of my head, the founders of Google and the founders of those people, despite being 50 and sometimes 60, are really just getting a first shot at power.
And there seems to be no preparation to hand it off to the next generation.
Well, from the older ones, I think they realize that the Pelosi age group isn't giving it up. They're just not giving it up. And so I think maybe there was a time, and they seem kind of autistic, and autistic people seem to believe this, is that if we just wait our turn, they'll do the right thing. And now they're they ain't fucking doing it, are they?
Well, I mean, that's kind of the generational question.
Well, I think
Maybe we'll get to the
normal human lives, it should be 30-year-olds doing that to 50-year-olds or something. But because of technology, you literally can have 80-year-old people that can hold on to power now. That's a new thing.
They want to die with keys in hand. I mean,
they want to live forever, I think, is what's really going on.
Well, they're trying.
Yeah.
They really are trying. Would Soros have 8 heart transplants before?
I don't think it's just they want to live forever. They would kill Nancy Pelosi, I genuinely believe, would kill every person on the planet if it meant she got to keep living.
Well, they have a suicidology. Is
that suicide, or is that insane attachment to the need to be alive?
Well, I would say it is suicide through against self-preservation, which I would extend self-preservation to your kin, let's say, and then beyond that, the community in America.
Anyone want to fact check me on my theory? Did I make any sense at all? Is it possible to have a monarchy or true tyranny, or is it always?
I mean, would you say the Third Reich was an aristocracy?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
What, Himmler?
There was a lot of them, wasn't there? Just Goebbels and.
Yeah, Goebbels. Yeah, but they were scientists. They weren't necessarily aristocracy.
Eichmann.
I'm just more saying that the Nazis were a small group, a few rulers.
Was Napoleon
that started at least with
a dictator?
Napoleon was arguably a monarch, arguably a tyrant.
What's the difference?
Well, right according to this, it's whether you have a common interest. So did Napoleon care more about French people or Napoleon?
Aren't we arguing not necessarily.
Oh well, yeah. So I mean, functionally, he was either an he was probably an aristocracy at first, and more of an oligarchy towards the end. And even that's like being self-interested to me is not necessarily a negative thing. Like he started sort of losing power because the British, the Rothschilds, were undermining him. And Napoleon was brilliant. I think he had like 160 IQ or something.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
him and Hamilton tracked about the same, but Napoleon had more ambition.
Yeah, and
they were both pushing.
Smart is not enough. Napoleon had that fucking drive. Like he never quit, and he was super fucking smart. And so, I think I'm not an expert on Napoleon by a long shot, but my understanding is I think initially he kind of did have a common interest. He was from like a middle or lower class family. He certainly wasn't a noble or anything, and he came up through the military.
And
right?
you know how like he blew up is because he was like on the front lines with his men, like putting the cannons in place and like in the middle of the battle.
And there's to full circle with the immigration. He was Corsican, I believe, not French, so he was not but he became. So I mean.
It was,
he has the famous saying, "If you want something done right, do it yourself."
Yeah.
Did you just say that or something? But I mean, that whole saying, you can drop a billionaire anywhere with $5 and they'll be a billionaire again in 10 years.
Well,
he might have been true in that case. Like he just fucking.
He did it a couple times.
Yeah.
So kind of, yeah.
He wasn't French in ethnicity, but he did become French because that is what was needed for him to gain.
Well, he spoke. I think he still spoke French initially.
Right. He was indistinguishable.
It's just.
But I mean, we could even go to someone like what's the dude from the Congo?
Matumbe?
Yeah, some of those guys. I mean, they're single leaders. Would they have an aristocracy? I mean, they're tyrants.
No, I'd say they're an oligarchy. I mean, in name, they're a tyrant, right? They're a single, but like Mugabe and those people, like you're not maintaining control with at least a few other guys that are killing people and doing the same shit you want. Like, you're just not. There's too many people. Again, maybe you could be a dictator of 10 to 20 people, maybe. But you got to go to sleep at night. You know what I mean? There has to be. A robot, maybe you could have one tyrant, like a Skynet, right? But even then,
you're arguing if you have a monarchy, it's going to become an aristocracy.
No, I think it already is an aristocracy. You just pretend it's a monarchy.
And then essentially it becomes an oligarchy.
Like a monarchy is an aristocracy where one person might be exceptionally powerful for that generation. Like, you know, like Trump. Trump is not a monarch, but he is. Like, it's the Trump party. Mm-hmm. I'm very concerned because of that.
He's a MAGA monarch.
Yeah, he's the MAGA monarch, but MAGA is not a monarchy, but it is, but it isn't. And it's also kind of a polity, isn't it? But it's not. It's kind of an aristocracy. You got like who gatekeeps the MAGA message. You got, you know.
Well, it's an oligarchy. I mean, you could file Peter.
Well, so that's the question. Are they doing it to help everybody, or are they just seeing an angle to help themselves? It's hard to answer. Trump seems to be making a lot of self-sacrifices. So
probably somewhere in between.
Yeah, and then so this is, again, just a little helpful cheat sheet. The truth is some weird interactive, like these words should be in motion, spinning around each other in some hexagonal shape, you know, and like be different colors and shit. It probably shouldn't be a still image. But yeah, I don't know. That's just my thoughts. Like maybe the Trump one kind of made it make the most sense in my own head. Trump is a monarch of MAGA, but MAGA is not a monarchy.
You shouldn't be fearful, though. We got Baron Trump.
Well, this is what's useful about these ancient, like Aristotle. They didn't think of a single ruler as a bad thing. They were like, okay, well, is he a despot or is he a fucking monarch? Because, you know, and they're like, they didn't think an oligarchy or a few people was a bad thing. Okay, well, are they aristos or are they oligarchs? You know, and the same. Even a lot of them, like the democracy became the most hated thing, starting with like Socrates, and then Plato, then Aristotle, and by the end, they're like, fuck these plebs. And I agree, democracy's god awful, but
yeah, I mean,
look, if you gave the power of decision making to the average
it depends on the people
person.
being governed too.
It does. Yeah, it does. I don't think we're going to get an answer out of this. I just think it's interesting to think about. Like, we're taught that any single ruler is like Hitler. Like, I mean,
yeah, dictator is bad.
Dictator,
that's a bad word.
It's so obviously not true. Even in your own family, like if you have a strong father who takes care of everybody, is that not sort of a dictator? Well, but in this case, he'd be a monarch, not a tyrant. That'd be great. You know, I fucking wish I'd had one. But yeah, so that idea is modern times. You say one ruler is evil. That's an evil person. But that's not how it was thought of for most of Western, most of Western thought, which I just find interesting. I'm going to pull up the chat here. Believe it or not, it's 5 o'clock. So any final thoughts, this immigration or otherwise, but we'll give the chat 30 to 60 seconds. Final questions, and then we are heading off. The doors open at 7. The event starts at 8. It is Destiny v. John Doyle, sponsored by Uncensored America. They're going to live stream it on their channel. We may mirror it to this channel. They said they would, but I'm wondering if that would take views away from them. So we'll see what we do. It may be live at 8 on this channel. We're not going to be filming, my understanding, any immediate independent content during that, but afterwards, very possibly, we will see. So that is my spiel. Can you guys read any great questions in there, other than someone you taking in the butt?
They hate Trump because he touches the stereo.
Great broadcast. God bless. Jeff Poor. I can kind of read
We
that.
allowed it with Roosevelt. I'm curious what he's saying we allowed, but I don't think we're going to get to that.
Don't keep up with the chat. It makes it a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
Thank you again. This is sort of our final weekend of dry runs. I think we feel pretty good that we figured out how all the audio and sound and all that works. Thank you very much to Zeb. That's not Zeb. Zeb Boykin from coming up all the way from South Carolina. You're going to hang out for the debate, and then are you headed home? Or
No, I'm going to probably leave early in the morning. But, I mean, we could probably do, I don't know, if you want to put some on later on after debate, I'm down for it.
I'm going to play it by ear how I feel after a night with Destiny.
Glad I got a little conversation with Mihaly.
No, I'm glad.
Hope I didn't
This
hurt
is
feelings,
awesome.
man. I mean,
Definitely
no.
no.
It's not intended to be offensive.
No, yeah.
No,
remember
absolutely
what
not.
you were saying to me out there? Is John always fucking apologizing
Yeah.
and shit? Look
No.
what you just did.
I asked
John
for it.
likes to apologize for things. I told him
Yes.
I really don't care, dude.
I have a soul.
You need more of this. We need more of this. I appreciate it.
I agree. I agree as well. And Mihai, glad. God, these buttons are backwards today. It was good to have you again. Hope you'll do some more music and stuff and get in that.
Yeah.
And we got all kinds of stuff.
We're going to get there.
You're Shiloh.
Is Mihaly on the album?
No, not yet.
Oh,
I'm
no,
trying to
no,
get him to
no.
record some
yeah.
Hank Williams for Inward, but
Yeah.
we
gonna
haven't
get
really.
there.
We got to like set
gonna
up
get there.
the recording space. So.
Yeah.
All right, so tonight we will see nothing live probably, but post. Oh, and Zeb, we did your Touch Grass interview. When's that going to come out?
Next
You cut that
Tuesday. I got one
tonight.
coming out
You'll
tomorrow.
finish it by
hopefully.
tonight, right?
I might. I doubt.
Kidding,
I'll get it
don't
out
fucking
tomorrow.
do that.
I might shoot for Thursday for Josh, and then Tuesday for you. So
All right, let me pull it up and then we'll be done. But Uncensored America.
yeah, like we started the show off. Pennsylvania's pretty wet right now, so me and John got a little.
We did a
touched grass outside, but
in the rain.
it was raining. So I don't know what it looks like on camera, but we got rain on the entire conversation.
It's a good conversation. We had a dog named Tiger coming up
Yeah,
in
we
the
had,
middle
we
of
had
it.
some people come up. Yeah,
I liked how that lady
very
just didn't grab the
ferocious.
dog.
Yeah,
Dude.
she
Like
just
she just let it sit there.
let it
Pitbull.
We were like
Mid-
trying to be polite, and
Mid
she's so-
film, she just let
she's
it
just
go.
like, oh, well, you must love this dog. I'll just leave him standing here for 40 minutes.
no leash. Screw it.
Yeah. All right, but I do strongly encourage you. I think it's going to be a good debate. It'll be live on Uncensored America's YouTube channel, a couple others. This is it. You can, if you're in this State College area, it's in the hub. What's the Heritage Hall, I believe. And we will be there. Doors open at 7. So hope to see you there. Catch the live stream. Otherwise, thank you,
Almost.
Mihai. Thank you,
Thank
Zeb.
you.
My name is John Ward. That's it for today. Until next time, remember, you are a world champion. Don't let your memes be dreams.
Godspeed.